Hello, everyone. Welcome to Popcast on the Rocks, episode 89. We're back for another great show. We're going to talk about pop culture things that we enjoy, and sometimes there's whiskey. I'm joined, as always, by Andrea
Hello, everyone.
and new guest, Mike. He needs no last
Hi.
name. So we're going to be talking later in the episode. We're having Mike on specifically to talk about Witcher season 2 from Netflix. We'll of course be getting into season 1 and many things Witcher. That'll be in the latter half of the episode. So if you're not familiar with the Witcher world, better go catch up quick. Before that, we'll have a few news stories and see what we've been doing throughout the week. And before even that, Andrea, there's some drink holidays, right?
There are. Welcome to 2022 and the drink holidays that this year brings. We've got a couple of different ones, kind of some interesting mixes. But apparently this year, the entire month of January is going to be known as Ginuary, which I find adorable and cute that somebody thought of this. And why hasn't it been thought of before? But yes, this month is known as Ginuary, so celebrate with your favorite gin beverage. And then on the 1st of January, or Ginuary, there were two holidays. One hardly surprising. It is known as National Hangover Day. Obviously, everybody can guess what happens the night before to cause that moniker. And then, yeah, right, such a mystery. I also feel like this, to deviate for just a moment, National Hangover Day could really be January 1st, but it could also be the Monday after the Super Bowl. Because seriously, like everybody knows what
After
happens
St.
at the
Patrick's
Super Bowl.
Day.
After St. Patrick's Day.
I
There are just
mean-
like, I feel like several different good days that this would just be really fitting.
Okay.
I've also got the problem I'm old enough now where I think I need 2 national hangover days, like back to back. Like the next day is not sufficient.
Yeah.
Absolutely. No, like the next day is like hardcore, like curl yourself up in a ball and just survive day. And then like the next day is like, like feebly totter out of bed and maybe eat some toast, kind of, like, yeah, no, I totally feel that. Hashtag 30s. Yay. But yeah, so the first was National Hangover Day. And then also kind of going along with that, it's also known as National Bloody Mary Day, which, some people use as a little hair of the dog in the morning to help you get over your hangover. I do like a good Bloody Mary, but I just like knowing my own sense of like having a hangover, that would not work out well for me. That would not be my hangover cure of choice. But I'm sure it works for some people.
Acidic tomato juice. And I mean, do you guys prescribe to the idea of hair of the dog, pick yourself up? For me, the last thing I want to think about is anything alcoholic. So I usually don't do that.
Yeah, I'm
I
like
can't pull it off.
50-50.
Okay.
I feel like there are different hangovers, like depending on what you've been drinking. So if I'm like hungover from like wine only or something like that, then I'm just like all dried out. And no, I don't. The last thing I want is like alcohol. I just want like gulps of water, any sort of like fluids in my system kind of thing. If I'm like drinking hard alcohol, then like there's a moment or two where I'm like, yeah, maybe I could have a little like something in the morning just to kind of like settle it all down.
No,
Very
I
weird.
can't. I can't touch anything the next day. I had a but still on the morning after the January 1st
Yeah.
years ago in college. I remember waking up on the couch, my buddy's on the floor next to me, and there's a bottle of Patron next to him. And I wake up kind of groggy. He wakes up too about the same time. He rolls over, slams one back, and I went, nah, that's enough. Like, just watching you do it is more than what I do.
Yep.
Wow. I mean, I've never gone quite that far. That's pretty impressive to just roll over and just like, well, my morning started. Shooters.
Right. So let's heal
But-
up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, I've had like, like a little vodka orange juice, or a little vodka juice, something like, just kind of like tamp down a headache or, bring it down a level. But yeah, it's rare.
Yep. Well, hopefully y'all didn't have too bad hangovers
Zero.
on the first. Zero for oh yeah, well, zero for you. Okay. But
I
you're
drank. I'm not saying
oh,
I
you
didn't
did.
drink on New Year's Eve, but yeah, I had
Okay.
zero hangover,
Okay.
shockingly.
You're just back on the bottle now, right? Though it's pretty recent. That's not a good way to phrase it, but
Just back on the sauce. Yeah.
yeah. Okay. Well, awesome. All right, Mike, you're new to the podcast. Why don't you tell us just a little bit about yourself, whatever you want to reveal? What have you been up to, consuming, entertainment wise, all that kind of thing?
Sure. Uh, oh,
Oh my
but I
gosh,
also come
you're
from like
breaking up.
first person shooters and whatnot. Uh
Start
oh.
over, Mike. You
Uh oh.
broke up. It's all
All
right.
right. No, it's just telling. It's the world telling me that nobody wants to hear about cars. So quiet. Try again. Um, I've been playing a lot of Halo lately. That's something
Mhm.
that's with Halo Infinite coming out. I still haven't gotten the campaign, but I've been doing a lot of multiplayer in that. It is the off season for my favorite hobby, which is amateur track driving, time attack stuff. And so I've been getting into sim racing quite a bit. We started last year, did a league with our buddies, and so winter is the time for that and wasting money on new car parts that I can't put on until my hands stop freezing in the garage.
Mm.
Um, Obviously, watching Witcher's been a big part of it. We've finished up Wheel of Time, um, so we've been absorbing that. And our child is 6 years old now, and so he's starting to take up our time. Like I can't be selfish as much anymore because he's had skating lessons, swimming lessons, we go karting. He's got to be with his friends at some point. We go skating on the back rink. I don't know how to skate, so I stand there and look like a goofball, and slide around on the ice a little bit while he out there skates circles around me. So that's really where our time has been. You too.
I'm a terrible skater.
Yeah.
I'm
So
such a
that's a little
klutz.
bit about me.
I need new skates. I should go get some and I can break them in on your rink on
There
your
you go.
yeah, cuz
It works perfect. Somebody else in the neighborhood clears it off, so I don't even have to put any work into it.
Nice.
Pretty
nice.
nice.
Cool.
Yeah.
That's great. So, couple things. Wheel of Time. We talked about that last week, and a
Oh
few
yeah.
weeks really. So without spoilers, um, for those that haven't seen it, what's your background with it? Did you binge it? Wait till it was done, watch it as it came out. What are
Have you
your
read the
general thoughts
books?
on it? Yeah, all that stuff.
So my wife is an avid reader to the point of she's an alien. She knocked out all 14 books in the last year,
Nice.
um, which blew me away. And then when
Mhm.
she did it, she finished the book, and I remember her going like, "I'm sad," and I went, "Oh, is it a sad ending?" She goes, "No, I'm like sad that it's done." It's like it just absorbed her for so long. So I got to kind of hear about the story vicariously through her, which is nice because I'm an idiot and I don't know. So it's really nice for her to just tell me the story, like we're cave people in an old cave, and she's like passing it down generations, and I'm like, yeah.
Yeah.
Um, so then we watched the series and we stuck with it every Friday as it was coming through. Um, and I guess overall thoughts on it were I enjoyed it for a little while. Um, I don't know if it was her slight disappointment that kind of rubbed off on me as well, but I just kind of felt like it fell flat after a little while and I stopped. I wasn't as invested. I wasn't caring as much as I thought I was going to be. So that's kind of where I landed with it. It was an okay show.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Um, so her having finished all the books. Thought it was kind of was on the same page there. A little disappointed, but I mean,
Yeah.
is she excited for the season 2, or is it like, oh, we'll kind of be done
Oh.
with this, or
He- By the end of it, she was like, "Well, we have to watch the last episode just to finish it, just for the sake of having
mm,
finished it."
Mm,
She actually
okay.
didn't care by that point either. I guess they changed enough things from it where and changing things can be good, right? Because it gives her something to continue learning, but it wasn't in a way that appealed to her. So
Hmm.
okay,
Sure.
yeah, it
Yeah.
was. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, I know. I mean, it's been a while for me from the first book, but I mean, I've reread it in my attempts to reread the series enough times to remember, a lot of the big things that were cut out from the season, and major characters that don't appear. And it's pretty frustrating as somebody who loves the books and loves like the timeline and kind of wonders how these characters who are um, in the first book and are not in the first series are going to be woven in, because it doesn't seem like there's going to be a natural way for that to happen. So it is
Woven
really
in, is that a
frustrating to
pun?
me. I know the weaves, yeah.
Yeah.
I can when I try
Hmm.
sometimes. So yeah, so I totally get that sense of frustration. There were definitely moments for me too, when it seemed like storylines were being picked up and then were dropped kind of unceremoniously. Um, that I also was very frustrated about. I'm hopeful for season 2, just because I think that they have a better grasp on what they're doing and they have like more background now. So much of Wheel of Time is background and like world building that it's really tough to do in a TV show. And I just don't know that they did it well, but they also didn't give themselves enough time to do it.
Yeah,
I mean,
I
it's
mean, go ahead.
no, no, it's
I mean, it's I hate always saying like you need more budget, because I think a lot of problems are created in media when we
Overblown
just have,
budgets, yeah.
yeah, you know, um it's a George Lucas problem. But um on the other hand, when it's a science fiction or fantasy show, there is a certain budget requirement kind of to compete.
Mhm.
Um and though that can be overridden with like really spectacular storytelling, it can be kind of tough. And I have hope that the next season, because the first season seems to be doing so well, that they'll throw some more money at it. They'll get someone a little more competent behind the lens. Um, I don't know about translation from the books to the show, if that's going to change. I
Mhm.
feel like that's probably, they're on their path. They have their advisors for it and all that kind of thing. But having not come from the books or any knowledge of it, that was where most of my issues lied, was um, with the technical element of it.
Mhm.
I've complained on here before, Mike, about how I'm tired of watching things that seem like they're just young adult things.
sure.
They're kind of pretty, they're kind of soft, they're not.
Yep.
I talked about how like video creation is so democratized now that like anyone can do it, and so there's a bunch of people that can make something that's good enough, that's fine. But
Sure.
I'm looking for the thing with it's a little more realistic, I guess.
Well, it's a tall order. I mean, you're talking about 14 books. Some of them are thousands of pages, right? And I get to talk like this, like I've read them, even though I can't take the real credit. But that's a massive undertaking of story. And thankfully,
Mhm.
you can't compress that into a 2.5 or even 3 hour movie. So that's the
Right.
nice part about doing it as a series like this. But even still, right, to your point, if you're talking about a budget that is limiting you to 8 episodes, right?
Mhm.
How are you supposed to cover enough ground? When you're reading it, you can go at your own pace, right? And so that character development can take the time that it needs to. But
Mhm.
on a TV show, you just don't have that.
Mhm.
Yep. Um, okay. Well, we'll be interested to see when season 2 gets announced, when that's happening, any changes that are coming up in that, and we'll be covering it. So, um, let's see. So one other thing I wanted to ask you about your week, but I can't think of it now. But I will ask, did you bring a beverage? I should have asked
Mhm.
earlier. I only you have a libation. Nice.
Yeah,
Nice.
I mean, it's in like
classic
a
Moscow.
okay, so it is. It's in the vessel. All right.
It is. Yep.
Cool.
I guess I
Andrew,
should have had gin thinking about it.
yeah. Yeah. What do they call that? English mule,
I think they
right?
do, yeah.
Yeah.
'Cause yeah,
Mhm.
and then when you make it with tequila, it's a Mexican mule,
Mhm.
vodka
Yeah. It's all pretty just
is the
take the
Russian.
stereotypes. Yeah.
Yep.
Yep.
Yep. So, yeah.
Um, Andrea, how about you? Drinks, your week, all that stuff?
Cheers.
Oh,
I
is
have a
green
drink.
looking.
Yes, yes. So this was partially Chris's idea, with the use of food coloring to make it green after a blizzard, which is a Witcher potion. So, cheers,
A
for our
blizzard?
Witcher talk.
Witcher
Yeah.
potion?
Yeah.
What the heck is that?
Yeah. Let
Blizzard.
me yeah, let
Okay,
me go find
so
it.
I have to say, we'll talk about it more later, but part of the one of the things with the game is I barely use potions. Like they kind of make a big deal of it out of them, but in Witcher 3 anyways, I barely use that stuff. So, I guess I wouldn't be too familiar with some of the potions.
Yeah, so it's in The Witcher 3 and it's like can slow time and like enhance, like I
Mm,
think it's like sort of mimicking what Geralt does in like the Netflix show, which is my main point of reference when he obviously drinks his Witcher potion and you know goes to
mhm.
fight an enemy. So yeah, so this is modeled after that. It is gin, ginger ale, and a little bit of lemon simple syrup, and then of course green dye because
Okay.
this is not a natural drink color.
All
That's
right.
awesome.
So you got the gin in there
tastes
too.
tastes quite good. Yes, it's very good.
Nice.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, your week.
Going along with my week, it's been pretty good. Have consumed quite a bit of media. Several of my favorite Netflix shows, besides Witcher, are back. I watched a couple of episodes of Cobra Kai because, yes, I love it, and it's teeny tweeny, but also like 80s star revival glory. I dig it. I'm not done with the season, but I like what I've seen so far. I watched Queer Eye, which is also back and just like gives me all the feel good feels because I love just like the storylines and like people getting helped and like all the good deeds that are done, not just like makeovers, but like other things too. So I feel like I need that sort of like feel good storyline TV sometimes. Um, and then going along with that feel good storyline TV, I watched Betty White, First Lady of Television, which was like an hour-long Netflix special about the career of Betty White,
Wait, they
who
threw that together
sadly
fast. Were they sitting
yeah,
on that or what?
I think it was actually supposed to be for her 100th birthday that was coming
Oh,
up that she didn't sadly make it
yeah.
to because she passed away. Um, but it was just so much fun. It was like a cute look at like of course like the big things that we know she's done, like the Golden Girls, and all like the kind of latter half of her career being like, you know, feisty but sweet grandma in movies like
Yeah.
The Proposal. Her Snickers commercial, which I like totally forgot about, but is hilarious, where she like pretends to go play, touch football with a group of guys in a park, and they're like, "You're playing like Betty White out there." So yeah, so just like little gems like that I totally forgot about, but it was very cute, a little sad, a little, bittersweet,
Mhm.
but it's only on Netflix for a couple more days, so if you have a chance, I would check
Oh,
it out.
interesting.
It's not long.
Okay.
Um, so I watched that. I somehow noticed on Amazon Prime when I was scrolling through the Wheel of Time kind of, um, bonus video series. I was just kind of playing around with other things and looking at like recommendations made for me. The first season of A Discovery of Witches was available via Amazon Prime. So I plowed through all 8 episodes of that. Also based on a book series, the All Souls trilogy by Deborah Harkness. definitely a thumbs up.
Hmm.
The storyline didn't quite match my expectations, but I think it was overcome with good acting, good character development, and pretty sweet special effects. Like some of the special effects in here was kind of what I was hoping Wheel of Time would
Hmm.
do. I mean, I know like witches and Aes Sedai are a little bit different and like powers are a little bit different. But the way that the effects were done in this show, I cannot say enough good things about whoever was the technical director there. So
Okay.
yeah, would
It's
definitely
pretty
recommend that
impressive.
show.
I would imagine it was. I would think it would be lower budget if it wasn't kind of a primary Amazon Prime. So that's kind of cool.
Yeah, yeah. So I can't remember what it was like a channel that made
Oh,
this show, like
wow.
some like Sundance channel man, I'm gonna have to go back and look at it. But they clearly saved like a lot of their budget just for these effects. Um, and I think they were helped by the fact that they like, didn't have to like world build like Wheel of Time did, where it's like you have to create this whole like city backdrops and towns and, all of that kind
Cool.
of stuff needed special effects budgets. They could just literally save it for here's your powers and here's how we're showing like, witches' powers. So there was some pretty cool stuff in there for sure.
Nice. Um, so your comments say that you're halfway through Witcher season 2, right? Okay,
Yes.
I just saw that as well. Okay, so we're gonna have to be careful. Mike, you're gonna have
Yes.
to make it to another podcast to do the set latter half, but that'll be fine because we're gonna have you know, the first season yet too, so there'll be extra to cover there. So
Yeah, I mean, Witcher is unfortunately one of those where I do have to wait for
Sounds good.
Chris to be available to watch with me, just because now we binged the entire first season and the first half of
yeah,
this one. Like we're so close.
yep,
So
right. Okay. Well, cool. Yeah, I should get back into Cobra Kai. I'm behind. I don't know. I
mhm,
had said before I had trouble with some of the decisions being made by characters. It was really frustrating for me.
mhm.
Um, I just didn't feel like putting myself through it. So
Yeah, I feel like they've taken a step back in at least the first few episodes that I've watched, and are focusing on just a few characters. It's not like everybody is super prominent right now. So they're able to sort of have these characters make decisions that don't like drive you up a wall. There's like one
okay.
moment that does, but then everything else feels like pretty normal.
Yep.
Hey, I stuck through that show for all three of the first seasons,
Yeah.
the three first seasons, and I loved it. I love the throwback. I love the spin on, the fact that Johnny is, you're giving they're giving us aspects of Johnny's personality to see his point of view on it, and they spun the story a little bit, and I like that. I loved it, and I love the back and forth, right?
Mhm.
Um, and you'd think they're about to turn over a new leaf, and then their old ways kind of trigger back, and it's almost like he gets like hit in the back of his mind. He's like, "Wait, no, I gotta be awesome," and I
Yeah.
like that. And now with season four, it's that same thing, and they're coming together, and then they're splitting up. And they're coming, and I'm kind of like, all right, guys, like, I get it at this point. Now you got to show me something different. I want to see some growth 4 seasons in.
Right.
Have you finished the fourth season?
I haven't. I
Okay.
haven't.
Yeah.
With that
So
question.
yeah. No, I totally haven't either. And I totally feel what you're feeling. Like there were the first two episodes in particular, there was like a lot of like back and forth and we're almost like together, but then we're not. And I'm like, um, and then there was like I think it's the third episode where they do like genuinely have some like middle ground at
Yep.
yeah. And I'm hoping, so I haven't seen beyond that, so I'm hoping that goes somewhere. I don't need it to immediately, but I agree with you, like, in the long term, I need, like, some actual steps forward.
This is like the fourth season now. We're about midway through. I'm like, they're gonna understand each other's perspectives. They're gonna come together. They're gonna be buddies. And they're gonna take over. And then they're like, yeah, you still suck. I'm like, oh.
Yeah. I
We were
wonder if
so close.
to me,
Uh-huh.
I think it's a thing that they came out with, didn't expect it to blow up. And so they're like, okay, we've got to make this
Mhm.
happen for longer. This needs to happen. We need to spread this out some. And so it's the thing, the couple, once they get together, if that's what you hinge your drama on, and now the drama's done because the couple's together, it's not the same. So,
Mhm.
yeah.
Good point.
Yeah, I totally get that. I just think like Cobra Kai has now introduced other antagonists that we can take like
You
a
can move
beat to
on.
yeah, we can take a beat to focus on them. And in particular, they're introducing another one in the fourth season. Don't think I'm giving anything away here, but just saying there's another person in the fourth season who, we can have um Johnny and Daniel like team up against. And so like why don't we just do it? Like
Right.
they can still do that and still not be like we love each other like thugs,
Yeah.
you know? Like we don't have to like sit down every Friday night, have a brew and talk about our feelings and like, bond, but we can like come together, especially because I think one of the good things about both of those characters is that they do care about their students and they do care about like the younger kids in the show and you can like see that. And I think there's room there for the showrunners to be like, cool, they can bond over this. Like they don't have to be besties, but they can just like be like, this would be in the common good of our students who we both care about. So let's just like figure some shit out.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah. And
Well,
even if you want to enjoy that at the end of the season then and start it up again, that's fine. But
Mhm.
just like I want to see the success for a moment.
Yep. 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 I totally agree.
I have to say, I'm happy that my gym does not have that kind of drama. We don't have like a neighboring down other side of the town gym that we have to feud with or something because the master instructors don't get along.
Right.
I
Or you
gotta
don't have to
start one up.
show.
You gotta start one
There
up.
we go.
Yeah.
There we go. Challenge thrown down. Challenge accepted.
Yeah.
It's gonna come up
I,
to your house and just like bust in when you're having a party. We're here to fight.
I think it'd be more realistic if it was like a different discipline, So because that's a common thing. Everybody that's just getting started in martial arts or something that doesn't have respect for the other ones or whatever wants to think the one they're doing is cool. Down talks to the other, to a different discipline. So if we got Taekwondo one and across the street is a karate gym, then it would be yeah. So
Bring the
but Mike, you'd be
jujitsu
I
white
know
belt
you'd
in.
be yeah. I don't think you can start a gym yet, can you?
I mean, I can. I don't think I'll get any students.
I don't know.
I'll come in. I'll
There you
come in.
go. See, it's already starting, buddy.
Yeah, I mean, you guys are
The
close
revolution
enough.
is now.
Yeah, here let's I'll drive an hour and 20 minutes to go to your gym. Yeah. So
Johnny would do that. He's petty enough.
right. Yeah. Well, I've had some things in common this week. Obviously, Witcher. I say some things in common. That's about it, actually. The rest was like manga and anime, pretty much. A little bit of Halo in there. But yeah, I'm still reading Akame ga Kill Zero. Got a couple more volumes of that done. And Demon Slayer is in its second season. That's currently airing on Funimation. Now, Mike, I know you powered through
Loved
season
it.
one. Okay, so I
Yeah.
remember you saying you had some issues though with it as well.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think any show is ever perfect. You know what I mean? But that doesn't stop me from enjoying it. Um, and that's a little foreshadowing for our main conversation here.
Sure.
But no, I overall Demon Slayer was super entertaining, and then I ended up watching the movie too on the train. Yeah,
Yep. The movie like made me cry. The movie was very sad.
yeah,
It was, and season two, I have to say, I'm enjoying more than anything else I've seen from the show. It feels more balanced.
really.
Some of the characters are coming to a little bit. Early on, I have issue with. It's a trope to have this really loud, obnoxious kid that is actually very powerful, but you can't stand them because they're so whiny or whatever. I think of Black Star in Soul Eater. Oh
Mm-hmm.
my God, shut your face, kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Even this lead star like Naruto, very obnoxious. In this one, I can't think of his name right now, but he wears the boar head, and he's cool.
Mhm.
Um, but he's just like always loud and
Yep.
kind of obnoxious. And then the his foil, if loud and obnoxious in a different way, the blonde kid,
Yeah.
that
He's
wants to
what
cry all
bothers
the time and stuff. Right. And so these characters can be very cool, and they have their moments. And I think it's the being, when they show such an opposite from what they normally are, that has greater impact. So but I don't know, characters are just balancing out more this season, and I'm liking it. So
Very makes me want to
um
look forward to it.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. 5 episodes are out right now on Crunchyroll. All right, I should say my drink too. So mine thematically is going just with The Witcher. I'm gonna call it Mahakam Ale, dwarven ale.
Yes.
It's not actually that, but we're gonna pretend it is in my leather mug. So the actual beer is pretty cool too. It's called Valkyrie Golden Honey Ale,
Ooh.
and it's by Warrior Brewing Company, and then this really awesome art on the
Oh, there
can.
it goes.
Oh yeah.
This Valkyrie woman here. So
Yeah,
yeah,
that is sweet.
Is that
it's
a
good.
helmet or is that like ears popping out?
She's got like like a headpiece kind
Okay.
of thing.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Yep. Okay, we'll get into the news a little bit. You'd already mentioned in your week breakdown, Andrea, about the sad passing of Betty White. I honestly thought she was older than that. But
Right?
I mean, I just feel like it's just a constant. She's a constant,
Right. Yeah. She just like been around for so long that, even like somehow 99 seems young, even
Mhm.
though it's like she made it to 99. That's amazing.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I
Yeah.
haven't noticed her age in years,
Yeah.
So
Well,
definitely
and
a shout.
it seemed like she was in fairly good health, at least the last time I had seen her. She's never looked like she was waning, so this must have really
Right.
Right.
come out of nowhere.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just it's just too sad. I mean, she couldn't make it to 100. And
Yep.
I know what were a lot of like kind of celebrations and different things planned, around the media. We'll see if
Mm.
some of that still goes on, because she is such like a cultural icon. She's just like one of those stars that you're just like, she's there, she's accessible, she's hilarious and warm and witty and a little bit acerbic, but also sweet. Like, yeah, she's just
You know,
and it's just amazing. Like her career was so strong so late in the game too. Like she
yeah.
just was always working and always doing like fun projects.
Yep. She transitioned and handled like every age of her life well.
Mhm.
And it's one of the few celebrities that, for having been around so long, at least I don't know of anyone that hated her.
Yeah.
There was
Mhm.
no like Betty White controversy. No one tried to
Right.
go for her. They just like, everybody's okay with Betty White,
Everybody is either
just,
okay or loves Betty White.
yeah.
Yeah.
No one's like, that's uncommon as well,
Mhm.
so.
Yeah, I would love to strive to be universally well liked. I don't have the personality for it. There are gonna be people that don't like me, probably more often than not. But I do. I'm envious of the folks where like anybody that walks in your room is like, "Oh, this person just the nicest person." I'm like, what do they do? Like, I
Mhm.
want to be that. Now Betty White does it on a scale that's just can't even fathom.
Right. So extra. Yeah. Yeah, I think she was just kind of one of those people who seemed like a star but also seemed real and genuine, and there was just sort of this feeling that she could be your grandma, even like not your grandma, like replace her, but she was just like a member of the family kind of thing, you
Yeah.
know
Grandma,
like my grandmas are
you're
very
out. I
different
found a
than
new
Betty
one.
White. All I'm saying is, like, she wouldn't be my grandma. She wouldn't, my grandmas are far different than Betty White. Not that they're not sweet people in their own way, but there's differences there. But yeah, she just felt like there was just sort of like an in, like you could be, you know, part of her family, maybe.
Yep. All right. Well, and cheerier news, I guess, and
Mm-hmm.
very different news. I have no transition to them. Horizon Zero Dawn, one of my favorite gaming
Mm-hmm.
now soon to be franchises. With the new year, I mean, Xbox kind of dominated the news space for at the tail end of 2021 with Forza
Mm-hmm.
and Halo. In 2022 now, PlayStation's trying to been getting a stream of things going. They were at CES, the Consumer Electronics Show, and they kind of gave some specs and talked about their new virtual reality headset. And we knew this was
Mm-hmm.
coming, supposed to be coming this year, but they just laid out a little more of the details. And with it, they announced a new game in the Horizon universe called Verizon Call of the Mountain. And it's just a little snippet they showed, but it got me excited. And it was funny because I think the day before, I was talking to Ashley, it's like, what do we do? Because the PlayStation VR we have now is getting pretty old. Are we going to get the second one when it comes out? Or are we going to wait for the Apple headset whenever that drops? And so then this came out, I was like, I don't know now, So, Mike, are you a VR head?
So I dabble in a bunch of different things. I'm not an expert in any, and frankly, I use VR for sim racing. There's nothing I've ever felt that is so immersive.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I've tried it on triple screens, which is another common way that people go about building their sim rigs, is to have three big monitors and they kind of wrap around you.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just the depth is not there. So I went to VR for that. I'm using an Oculus Rift S, and that is incredible. It blows my mind. I mean, even now I've been doing it for a year and a half. I still will sometimes look down at the shifter in the car and try and grab it.
Hmm.
And I love that. And then I've started using it for other things now too. So I picked up a couple of boxing games. We picked up there's a Darth Vader game, so it's a Star Wars game, but it's under the Darth Vader naming title. There's like 3 chapters to it. My son and I love that. It's basically glorified Beat Saber, but with lightsabers. So we love that. But frankly, I haven't tried out other virtual reality outside of the Rift S and outside of these Steam properties.
Yeah.
And that was actually going to be a question I was going to have for you: is how does the PlayStation VR feel in comparison? Like, is there a significant difference, or is it better?
Yeah. Before I answer that, I'm just going to say hello to Mike in the chat. Thanks for jumping in. Other Mike. um,
Well,
yeah, it's a different
You're
Mike.
everywhere, Mike. My
this
God.
is
Yeah.
this is why we need last names, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, the PlayStation VR it came out pretty early. It saw pretty good adoption because PS4 sold so well. Um, it is dated technology at this point. Like it needs replacement. So I'm sure your headset is better than this one, and there are definitely better headsets from Valve now. And
Get it.
then there's the wireless stuff like the Quest 2.
Right.
So there, Alan threw in the release date. It was
Oh
October
yeah.
2016.
Wow.
So it's old. And so I'm hoping for a really big improvement here. I still don't know if we're going to see mass adoption outside of the completely standalone wireless space like the Quest 2, because they'll
Sure.
be coming with the Quest 3, I think this year is supposed to be what's happening there. And that's been selling really well. It's often in the Amazon top selling charts. And yeah, you take a little hit to resolution, but people really like that freedom.
Mhm.
Yeah. I sometimes wish I would have gone that direction, because the other benefit to it, if you want that increased resolution, from what I understand, is you can still get a cord that will plug in then to your display port on the PC if you want to play these high resolution games. Like if I wanted to do Assetto Corsa or iRacing at a really, ultimate scale, I could do that. But there's definitely something to be said, if they can get it to where it's got enough memory that it can hold enough games for you to be able to just pack that up and take that as your
Yeah.
mobile gaming platform. It's pretty cool.
Yep. That's why I'm like tempted to wait for whatever Apple's thing is
Sure.
because they just have the most efficient mobile chips right now. And I have no doubt they'll be able to put something really spectacular in a headset. And it'll be very expensive and all that stuff, but PlayStation's thing is going to be, well, we have PlayStation games. That's why they need these reveals like the Horizon VR. They need to have those exclusive things because otherwise, yeah, who's gonna put up with the cord yet unless they really can. I was hoping they were gonna have a wireless as- attachment. Like you could make it
Sure.
wireless. Some headsets have that. You plug in the wireless thing to your system, and then it's. But I don't. I'm guessing they're not getting the fidelity or the bandwidth that they're looking for that way, the consistency, because VR, if you have a hiccup just for a moment,
Yep.
it can make you really sick.
Yep.
All of a sudden something skips and doesn't react the way it's supposed to, and oh, that's
Yep.
bad. So
And you don't want that while you're standing up.
right.
Absolutely. Yeah. I wonder if it's a refresh rate issue or what it could be once, because I mean you're kind of talking about glorified Bluetooth, right? At that
Yep.
point. So
Yep. Yep. Well, speaking of someone that looks sick, Morbius, Jared Leto in the movie Morbius. That's what's this story here, Andrea?
Yeah, so this caught me totally by surprise because I feel like there's been no promotion for it, but apparently um the movie was supposed to come out on January 28th, which is in like 3 weeks. And they delayed it. They've delayed the release date now to April 1st. Rumors have been swirling because Spider-Man No Way Home has been doing so well that they just want to like ride that train for a little while longer. Um, I have kind of a hard time believing that fully. It could be like a factor, but I'm sure that there were more that went into this decision because like I said, I've heard almost nothing about this release. And it feels like a decent enough release where we would have gotten something. You know what I mean?
okay.
Like Jared Leto's no like D class movie star, second class Hollywood citizen that like his projects should be like all the way down at the bottom, and getting no promotion. So yeah, I was just
Hmm.
kind of a little bit surprised and a little bit bummed that I really hadn't heard more about this other than like, I don't know if this is kind of like a first foray of getting it into the media by circulating this story.
Hmm.
What do you think would be the other reasons for them delaying it?
Honestly, if it's one of those things where it wasn't ready in the first place and they just sort of like fell behind on a media campaign,
Sure.
then it's just like it's kind of a weirdly great way to get the name out there, but then also be like, Spider-Man is so good that like, we just can't release this other movie and distract from it right now. You should probably go see that. It's kind of like a weird win-win media campaign of like, we want you to see this. It's so good. But we don't want to take you away from this other amazing property. So like we're just gonna like delay this a little bit.
All right.
I can
That's a good point.
I can totally buy them uh pushing it off for Spider-Man, I guess. I mean, like you say, Leto is not some D tier something or another, be at the bottom of thing, but his movies generally don't do very well. Like it's like a Leto curse almost. I mean, he
Like
kind
you
of
don't
came
think
out,
Dallas Buyers Club did any
but
well?
since then,
Okay.
but that's what I'm saying. He had his moment where he like came into movies, and then everything has been big budget things and has not done well, except I think uh Suicide Squad, but that was critically lambasted. So like
Yeah,
even though
it
that
was
did
pretty
pretty
panned by
well,
critics. Yeah,
that
for sure.
right. So I mean, Blade Runner 2049, huge budget, did not live
Hmm.
up to expectations. The one he was just in with Denzel Washington,
Oh yeah.
kind of came and went. Like he's trying so hard to be in these movies where he's very unique. He's very Jared Leto. he transforms himself or
The
something.
Little
And
Things. Is that what
I
you're
feel
talking
like it
about?
doesn't like, yeah, yep, Little Things. But
Um, the one
The
the one I
Gucci was
would
supposed to be.
say. Sorry, what did you say, Mike?
I was going to say the House of Gucci was supposed to be fairly good.
I was just gonna point that out, except
Oh,
for the fact that like yeah, except for the fact that I feel like people don't remember that Jared Leto's in it because he does like the whole like body transformation again, except for like this time instead of getting skinny, he does the fat suit. Which actually
I didn't
works out
remember
really
that.
well.
I did
Yeah.
not remember that he was in that. Hmm.
Yep. So
I
that
haven't I
one's
haven't seen it yet. I wanted to see. I've heard so many mixed things about it. I've heard some people say it's really something, as in bad, and then other
Mhm.
people really enjoy it. So I don't know to say. I'm intrigued by it, so I would like to watch it sometime for sure.
Yeah, I don't feel like it's one of those you need to like rush out, and see it immediately, but it's a good film. It's solid. There
Okay.
are some fun performances. I think Lady Gaga does really well. Definitely am on the side of people who have issues with her accent, although I don't find myself like needing to nitpick it. Like it's
Okay.
distracting and it's a little wacky, but I think um it's very much modeled after, the real life person. I'm totally blanking on her name right now. But yeah, I've seen some interviews with her in comparison with like Lady Gaga's take on it, and it's pretty accurate.
Um, back to Morbius for a second. Mike, have you seen this at all? Trailer or anything like that, or familiar with the
oh
character or
yeah.
anything like that?
Oh yeah.
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 Okay.
I've seen the trailers. I've watched it. I've wondered how many vampiric anti-heroes we can have. But I'm here for it. I dig it. Wondering if the DC is going to come out with Man Bat then as well.
Yeah. Right.
Mhm.
Follow this up.
Mhm.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
but
No, it
I'm
would be
looking
more
forward to
like that. Um, they were in pre-production for Man Bat, and Marvel found out about it, and like, nope,
it.
we're making one first.
Yeah. Yep. We got it.
Uh,
The makeup
but
looks really cool to me, actually. I
yeah.
like
Mhm.
that they've gone the vampire bat, face humanoid version of it.
Hmm.
Mhm.
Leto looks freaking ripped. Um, and that's, at least he's putting that work in. He's got the superhero body going.
Mhm.
Um, so I'm interested.
Okay.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
that's one thing you can say for Jared Leto is like, his acting can sometimes be all over the map, but in terms of like committing his body to a part, he always does. He always brings
Yeah.
it.
He's competing with Christian Bale.
Yeah, for
What he
real.
can.
I don't know if you
Yeah.
can top that,
Right.
Yeah,
but
I mean, yeah. He's done certainly more extremes than Leto has, but I mean Leto's definitely when you look at like Dallas Buyers Club to House of Gucci, like there's, he's throwing it
Mhm.
in there.
Yep. I just have an issue, I guess, with how many, like, we have a lot of characters to draw from in comic books. Do we have to take the villains and make them good guys? I'm really tired of it. I'm tired with like Harley Quinn and Venom, and now if it's this, and we get y- there's a difference between making a character believable, a little more gray, giving you understanding to why they are what they are and why they do what they do,
Mhm.
versus like, let's make a children's DC show with all the villains and now they're friends in high school and what what no, I'm just kind of opposed to that. We need to have our villains, that they
Yep.
can be villains, and they don't need to be the center of this thing where they're now kind of a good guy.
so I mean, yeah, I see where you're coming from with it a lot. But I think part of the reason they're doing it is there may be at this point a little bit of superhero fatigue. The number of Spider-Mans that we've had, even the number of Thors that we've had at this point. And you can tell a superhero story with a character that not a lot of people know but are still interested in. I mean, Iron Man was not a very popular superhero before they made the Iron Man movies. Definitely not on the scale of some of the others, right? He wasn't probably even in top 10 from what I understand. Um, but then now when you're doing it with a villain, you have that inner conflict already, so that part of the story is kind of pre-written for you, and it's something that people haven't quite seen yet. I mean, the formula is the same, but you definitely haven't seen a Morbius movie.
Mhm.
You
Right.
know,
You can get away with
Wow.
more
yeah.
because people are going into it knowing that you're not telling a superhero story, so you can have them do some like really off the wall dark stuff. And it's like, well, this person was a villain anyway, so I hope they overcome this like dark moment that they're having, but like, you know, it's not like, oh my god, Thor shot someone. Like, the movie ends right there. Nobody watches the rest of that Thor movie.
Or you fall back on, well, he was mind controlled. Like
Right.
that's what
Yeah.
they tend to go with.
Yeah.
Right. Some sort of trope escape. Yeah.
Well, I mean, but can't isn't that what stuff like The Boys and Doom Patrol and Umbrella Academy, all these things are for? Lesser known comic books, off the wall characters, something that's not, if you're getting that superhero fatigue, you don't need to take an unknown or lesser known villain, or potentially a very well known villain like Venom, and
Mhm.
make them a nice guy that's full of comedic relief, when you could take someone that, to your point, like any of these characters that are very underutilized or not very well known, Guardians of the Galaxy, take your
Yeah.
pick. um could
Yeah,
do a
I
movie
feel
on
like
the Morlocks from X-Men. They're a bunch of weirdos or whatever, and do some strange stuff.
Yeah, I feel like it's all in the way that like it's first presented. Like you're right, Guardians of the Galaxy could have been, something like darker or superhero without like, being like very traditional, like happy family, good family fun. Um, but if their plan was for Marvel to like introduce them to work alongside like Thor and Iron Man and Spider-Man and
Yeah.
stuff like that, they had to take that slant early. So unfortunately, I think they pigeonholed themselves. So now it's like,
Yeah.
crap, we did like all these like good, family fun kind of things. How do we get out of that? But
Yeah.
also but also utilize the formula that made us successful.
Yep. it is
And
it
maybe
is a
there's
I don't I'm not saying I disagree with you because I think there is that fatigue out there, especially with like Disney's Cruella. I know got hit with a lot of like, oh my God, like why couldn't she just be like the evil person who wanted to make a puppy coat? Like we didn't need a whole back movie about, like her bohemian upbringing and like her fashion aspiring dreams kind of thing. And I think there was some early rumblings of that on Joker, even though I think people sort of like were wowed enough by the movie to sort of get over that. I think there is that feeling out there for sure.
Yeah. Yep. um That reminds me of Boba Fett show. Been watching that too, and yeah, for talking about characters, so now explaining backstories and some of that. So maybe
maybe
we'll
there's
talk
just
about
a
that someday.
formula. Maybe it's just as simple as somebody found a formula that works, and so now everybody's going to repeat it until they can't anymore. Like the buddy cop genre, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Didn't
Hmm.
need nearly that many. We just realized that it sold a lot. So,
Yep.
Hmm.
Yep. Yep. Okay.
NCIS Star Wars.
oh my god, yeah.
um.
Don't
All right.
anybody take it. I'm gonna make millions.
I know
I'm
you better
trademarking it
call
right
up
now.
Jerry Bruckheimer right now. Whoever does all that stuff. Yeah. Jerry Bruckheimer and Kathleen Kennedy. I'll get him on the phone for you tonight. Okay. Let's.
Thanks. Appreciate it.
Yeah. Um. All right. Witcher. We're going to talk about
Mhm.
the Netflix show Witcher. So we'll be covering season 1 in just because we'll be comparing, contrasting, and that kind of thing. So hopefully you haven't seen Witcher season 2 and not season 1. And then the first half of Witcher season 2, and kind of whatever context we can provide for potentially things from books or from games or whatever, we'll do that as well, where it can happen. So spoiler warning for Witcher stuff through season 2 on Netflix, or through first half of season 2.
It's gonna be
Um,
so hard to not talk about the second half. I'm
I'm
just gonna put
so
that out there.
sorry.
It's like I'm driving 100 miles an hour and you're like, hit the brakes.
yeah.
I'm so sorry. If
It's all good.
something spills out, like don't worry about it. I just don't I don't like I need some surprises. I can have things spoiled for me, but like I definitely need like one or two that I'm still gonna be like, what?
Okay,
So
why don't we start then with Andrea? You
Mhm.
tell us what what was the last thing that happened. So you remind
Yeah.
us where we stopped in the storyline. We'll
Yeah,
kind of go
absolutely.
backwards.
So, I mean, for overall, the last thing that really happens, I guess the last big kind of things that happen for me are, um, Princess Ciri, is with Geralt at Kaer Morhen, and they've just discovered that her blood is special. She's got elder blood. Um, because there's like some signs in the woods that where her blood has dropped, like those special flowers have grown, and Geralt's mentor Vesemir and his buddy Triss, um, the mage, have just discovered that like her blood is elder blood and can be a component in whatever concoction makes more witchers. So Vesemir's like really excited about this. And then the other big kind of ending plot line that is, kind of our mid-season finale, maybe we'll call it, is that Yennefer and I think his name is Cahir, um, the Knight of Nilfgaard, are
Hmm.
just escaping to try and get to Sintra, and they're on a boat that's headed for Sintra. Um, but Yennefer notices um, that their sort of underground railroad kind of conductor, the bard Jaskier, has just gotten his loot smashed, and maybe something has happened to him. So she's sort of like faced with the decision of, am I staying on the boat and saving myself, or am I going out to like figure out what happened to him and maybe like sacrificing my chance to escape and do something good for me?
Okay.
So
All right. I think is that kind of a refresher there, Mike,
Yeah,
where she's left
yeah,
off. Okay.
that's great.
So why don't we talk a little bit then? Mike, what is your background with Witcher? And what were your thoughts on season one?
So I guess you would call me a Witcher virgin right up until season one. This is another one of those things where, again, my wife reads at ridiculous paces, and so she knocked that series out
Mm.
um, just ahead of the first season coming out. And then my brother-in-law has played all of the video games religiously as well. I tried Witcher 3 briefly, but not enough to get into the story and really have a passion for it from that perspective. So what I ended up doing is I watched season one. I fell in love with the series. I've read a bunch on the background now and kind of filled
Mm.
myself in to the lore of it. And then obviously talked with Rachel about it pretty significantly about what's happened in the books. So for the most part, in reality, I don't have a big tie
Mm.
to the world of The Witcher. Um, but I loved the first season. I loved Henry Cavill's portrayal. Really liked just the character of Geralt that he put out there. So
Mhm.
Okay, nice.
and now I know a lot about the
Right.
world,
Yeah.
the large picture of it, right? Because I have done a bunch of background research into it. Now I
Mhm.
kind of feel vested with the
Right.
story.
Yeah. Yep. So Andrea, how about you? What was your, because you and Chris, like you said, recently just binged it's freshest in your mind, season one.
Yes.
You just binged through it. So how would you come away with that?
Yeah, I also loved season 1. Um, I thought that the storytelling was excellent. I came into it totally fresh, hadn't even looked anything up. I mean, like you and Alan had sort of like talked to me a little bit about like the Witcher games, but there was not enough context for me to like really understand,
Sex on
you know.
unicorns. That's the
Yeah,
recurring.
you
Yep.
guys told me just like the wildest stuff that I was like, okay. So you really like didn't sort of like set me up to be like, I understand the lore of The Witcher, like and everything that's going on in this world. So I came at it, I think, pretty fresh. Um, which is not something I'm used to doing, but was kind of fun to, be that new audience and have things just like revealed to me, had to put the pieces together for myself. I haven't really done that in a long time because usually I'm reading the books or I've read some, background information, I've played a game or whatever. So I thought season 1 did really well for introducing people to the world of The Witcher, giving us the reveals, giving us the, here's the present, here's the past, here's some, storylines to come and weaving them all together um, in a really interesting and compelling fashion. There were maybe, I had small quibbles about sometimes I think they returned to scenes a little bit too often and I was sort of watching the same thing happen maybe like once too many times. In the fall of Sintra is kind of what I'm thinking of, and like all of the things that were happening there. I feel like I was returning to the same moments like maybe one too many times. But I think those are very small quibbles with the first season.
Okay. Yeah, my background coming into it was I've played through Witcher 2 and Witcher 3 and then quite a lot of Gwent. And
Yes.
so I was pretty cemented in really like there's a lot of fantasy universes and this was probably the one I connect with the most.
Hmm.
Um because I love the political element of it. I how
Hmm.
the always it's still very confusing to me. I don't have a grasp on it, but I always love it uh the way that the different kingdoms are working against each other and the power players seeing them conduct
Yeah.
their schemes. So I love that a lot. I think in general I was pretty happy with season 1. I think that they did a lot really well. I watched it right when it came out, so it's not particularly fresh in my mind.
Hmm.
But I remember having a couple complaints. One in particular was Triss. You couldn't
Mm.
Triss. You couldn't pick her out of a lineup. You'd be like, which in this lineup, who is Triss? I wouldn't pick her. I don't know. Now I understand that the show is based on the books and not the games,
Hmm.
but they're clearly taking things from the games because they're so well
Absolutely.
liked that Geralt looks like from the game. That's clearly
Yeah.
what they modeled off. So I think it's fair to compare in that way. And then also a lot of people complained about the Nilfgaardian armor. It was kind of just wrinkly black stuff or whatever.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah,
and I will
I thought it was made
say,
out of bark at first.
oh, okay, interesting.
Yeah, it was very
Um,
strange.
so I will say, I think that I think the showrunners were listening to feedback because they had some corrections in season 2.
Hmm.
So, but overall, yeah, I thought season 1 was pretty great, pretty well paced. It really made me care for Yennefer when I
Hmm.
hadn't previously.
Hmm.
Gave her a lot of context, filled in a lot of blanks for me. And though I was pretty unsure of the actress to begin with, she sold me eventually. Um,
Hmm.
she had the performance. So,
Yennefer is actually my biggest disappointment with season 2. To be
okay.
Oh, okay. I thought
perfectly
I thought you were
honest,
gonna say in season 1, and I was like,
no,
I was
I
on like the whole
love.
journey with her in season
Yeah,
1.
me too. And she seemed complex. And you thought that this was a person who was obsessed with power, but it wasn't actually power that she was obsessed with. That's just what she thought she was obsessed with. But she was really obsessed with having her own autonomy, right?
Mhm.
that is the real power to her. And you see that go through as she believes that having all of this power is going to solve her problems because she was so and so mistreated and so discarded, right? That she thought, well, I need power to be respected. And then
Mhm.
once she got the power, and that doesn't solve anything, it's the autonomy, it's her free will, her choice over her life that she really wants. That is so well fleshed out in
Mhm.
season 1. And I don't think I'm spoiling anything with season 2, but I feel like they just went, nah, she just wants power again. No, like that's not it at all.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, again, I've only seen through the first half of the season, but I agree that her character development, I think, took several steps backwards. Um, because again, this season, it feels like she's focused on what she can't have. In the first season, the first half of the season, it was power. She was gonna, go be a mage, and she was gonna be respected, and she was gonna be so powerful. Then she was gonna be beautiful, and then she was gonna get this position at court and be important, and influence politics and shape the world. And then it was, oh, I need a baby. I need choices over my own body because that was taken away from
Right.
me. So I'm like desperate to heal. Now, again, in season 2, she's lost her power and is desperate now to go like heal that part of herself and like find herself there. And I feel like I've already seen this storyline for her where she desperately wants something that feels impossible and isn't going to really help her, but she's so blinded about this, like, this is what I need, that she's just not expanding into any other arenas as a character. And it's really frustrating.
It's very well said.
Thank you.
Yeah, other things in season 1, I guess. I thought they came up with pretty good effects. The song
Mhm.
by Dandelion that they created for him was
Dandelion.
very good. It's very addictive, very addicting.
Yes.
Toss a Coin to Your Witcher is a classic now.
Yes.
Anytime we're going to a Renaissance fair, that one definitely is going to be on to somewhere in there. So
Yep.
And I do have to say, as long as we're kind of on looks for a character, I did check out some various, images of him like in the game. I'm glad they like toned it down. He's still like flamboyant and fun and like, especially in season 2, we're seeing a little bit more play on color and flash in his dress. But I think this is a moment where like it's good that they just like took it down like one notch and
yeah,
made him a little more real.
I don't think anyone really complained about Dandelion. I think that I think they did a good job with
I think they
what
did too.
yeah. Yeah.
I wonder.
Yeah,
Oh,
go
go
ahead.
ahead. Well, I was just gonna say on that side of like character casting, right?
Mhm.
Obviously, hugely important aspect of any show. Iron Man is Downey Jr.
Yep.
With his Thor, et cetera, et cetera. And frankly, Cavill is Geralt.
Mhm.
But as somebody who wasn't familiar, didn't have a visual representation from the games, and didn't have the description from the books, I will say it is nice to have that freedom to not be held back by the
Mhm.
way that the character looks. Like I can just fall into their
Yeah.
portrayal.
Mhm.
Um, and that is definitely, I mean, as a showrunner, that would be hard to do. Like hard to balance. Do I
Mhm.
cast based off of the way they look, yeah, or based off of the performance that I think they can provide? And you're going to alienate at least one group if you don't do it right.
Yep. I mean, that's the burden that a showrunner takes on when you're going to adapt content. When you're taking
Mhm.
something that has a built-in fan base, that is your responsibility. That's like what you're stuck with. And yeah, it's going to be a tough call, and it's something I've been fighting with now a lot because a lot of these adaptations, it's like, man, do I want to read Wheel of Time, or do I just want to be okay with what I have in the show? Do I
Yeah.
want to read Dune, or do I just want to be okay with what's in the movie? Do I want, it's like you choose your medium that you
Mhm.
want to consume whatever property in, and then just let it be. It's like the Cowboy Bebop Netflix thing. My Cowboy Bebop is the animated one, and anyone that likes that is not gonna like the live action one.
Well,
there's just no way. There's no way.
you're,
But
you're
if you
100%
haven't
right.
but if you haven't seen the original or you saw it and you didn't like it, maybe you like the live action one. So like
Mhm.
I don't know. To
They
me,
canceled it.
those yes. Which
So,
I should have put that in a news thing. As an aside, quickly, the show's doing pretty well.
What?
Shockingly. Cowboy Bebop on Netflix. It's charting.
really?
Like people are watching it as far as
Shocked.
I'm aware.
Shocked.
So I don't know who you are out there, but quit it. All right. Stop watching that garbage. Um,
Or I mean, I don't know. I mean, I'd be willing to like have you leave a comment and be like, what is it? Like, even as someone who is like willing to give it a shot. Um, I definitely was like shocked at the amount. John's out.
We lost him.
I'm
John,
sorry.
we lost you.
Like,
That's so
we're-
mad.
You were so passionate about Cowboy Bebop that you were like, I can't pause button.
no,
Andrea,
I-
don't even invite this commentary. Like, shut it down. I'm serious though. I would love to know who is the audience for this Cowboy Bebop. Is it people who haven't seen the anime? Is it shockingly somehow people who have and are finding something redemptive about it? You know what I mean? I'm literally curious. You don't have to see any of the comments, John. I can take it all on, but I'm
yeah, you can find them. I'll dox them. We'll like get rid of these people. I guess. No,
I'm
whatever.
luring you
It
out in
just
the open so John can dox you.
it's definitely a thing. It's definitely a thing where it's like, what do it's going to change your enjoyment. That's why it's nice to have people on the show or to talk about people that have different backgrounds with content because it definitely affects how you see it.
Yeah.
So
bringing it back to Witcher, I did not look up anybody from the games until I was solidly into season 2 and was just sort of curious about.
sure.
I saw a couple of your pictures, when you were
Yes.
recapping, and was just curious to then go look at like direct comparisons between the actors and their game counterparts. And for the most part, I was pretty pleased at what I saw.
Sure.
I think there was some earnest attempts to keep to images. I mean, Vesemir in particular just looks like you just, depixelated him and made him a real person. It's
Yeah.
astonishing to me like how much this actor looks like, Vesemir of the games. So
Yeah.
I'm looking at the images of Triss too, and I mean, her facial structure seems pretty similar. The shape of her nose and the shape of her mouth. When looking at the two pictures together, I mean, if they change the color of her hair and don't have it be curly, then you're a lot closer. Which they kind of
Yep.
did a little bit with second season.
So yes, so let's get into season 2
Yeah.
with that. Well, because I wrote that in my comments somewhere. What episode was that we really kind of
4.
got?
3 and 4 is when she comes to Kaer Morhen.
Okay. For yes. So my comment was Triss. Look, let's see. Triss's look and hair is a lot better. Was that so effing hard? Because I don't know. Like the actress, right? As soon as they made her hair a little more red, they did a style that was a little more similar. They put her in some clothes that I could see Triss wearing, and I'm like, why didn't you do that from the beginning? Instead, you had to use an excuse of like it's like she reinvented herself. It's like she got injured and now I'm gonna like have a makeover. And it just was weird. Again, it's response to fan criticism, I'm sure. So that's good that they're listening in that way or whatever. It was a very Triss is a fan favorite. It's Yen versus Triss, all right? So you don't get to mess up Triss, and I think that they pulled her back. We're getting to see her a little more in this show, do a little more in this season, all that stuff. So I think that's been a market improvement.
Yeah,
So.
as someone who hadn't, known of her origins and known if she was going to be like a big character or not. When she's first introduced in season 1, there's just, there's no context, so it's like she looks how she looks.
Yep.
She, you think she's going to be just one of these like one-off like this is, one of the side stories that's happening and it's just within the contained episode, and then having her come back like right at the season finale and then into season 2, it was like, oh, so this is like a recurring character. She's changed, like this is what she should have been. So from that standpoint, it was a little odd. For you, I'm sure it was like, this is so much more satisfying. And for me, it was like, cool, I guess she's gonna have a different look now.
She was on
me off too.
Yeah.
like she's on like the Hoda Copy show or something, and she won the prize to get the makeover. So it's
She
just
got the makeover, yeah.
yeah, yeah. No, I it's one of those things where I guess I'm trying to be reasonable about it, but when you see in season one, when you see her, I just have no idea who this character is until they say their name. And so it's like,
Mhm,
oh, that's Triss. Okay. I shouldn't have to do that. I should
mhm.
be like, oh, that looks like this person. That's probably this person. And then it's close enough that
Well,
but
Well, yeah. I mean, I think there's something to be said, when you do have recasting sometimes like people have a totally different vision or they say like, this you're just like won me over. It's like the personality and not so much the look. Sure. But with Triss, it's just so simple.
yeah,
Like you could have just
right.
given her red hair and a different dress and it would have been like there's Triss.
Yep.
Like it's just something so easily fixable that it just feels like you should have just done this from the beginning.
Yep. Yep. So I having watched season one quite a while ago, and the fantasy series I watched recently being Wheel of Time, when I first started this, my initial comparisons were to Wheel of Time.
Oh yeah,
And
okay.
I just like immediately I'm like, yes, this is someone behind the camera. This that like has an eye for it or something. I
Mhm.
felt the budget, the monsters felt real. I even wrote
Mhm.
somewhere in there, like, do you see that magic? How it felt like it had impact, it had weight when he's being pinned against the wall in the first
Mhm.
one or whatever by that scream. Like you feel those things. And
Mhm.
those are a lot of complaints I had with Wheel of Time. And I so
Mhm.
immediately season two of Witcher felt very refreshing to me. Um, in the like adult content element of it and the elevated production value.
Mhm.
I don't know if you
Yeah.
felt that way or like if it's how did the show end up looking for you compared to season one even? Did you notice a difference in Witcher season one versus two? Was there an improvement there? Or?
I
Yeah,
think
Mike.
go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, Mike, do you want to go ahead? I
Oh,
feel like I've been
yeah.
chatting quite a bit.
um, I feel like it did a good job of maintaining the visceral combat, maybe even turning it up a little bit of a notch. But like the Leshy, right, seemed more grounded. Um, and they didn't have to rely so much on darkness in
Mhm.
this
Mm,
second season as they did in the first. And a lot of times I feel like when you're doing CG, one of those quick tricks, which seems like to kind of save money, is to put it in a lot of cover of darkness. The zombie scene, heck, the opening scene from season one, where we see him fighting that spider monster type thing in the water, it's really, really dark. And so you can kind of hide detail that way. They didn't have to do that with this. I mean, their Leshy was up front and center when I'm trying to calculate episodes. Yep, when Esco um, becomes Leshy, right? That is front and center in a well lit room, and then there are things that happen later in the season that we won't talk about that highlights how good their graphics have gotten and how much they feel weighted. Like you said,
Mhm.
yeah.
when he hits the wall, that could be a little camera shake or whatnot. But there are when they're seeing the creatures, they feel like they're grounded in the reality. Um,
Mhm.
and when he's cutting through the branches, like it
Yes.
actually feels like he's doing it. So
Yep.
yeah, I do agree. I like the fireball. I don't remember the magic
Igni.
word.
Igni, I
Igni.
think. Hmm.
Yep. When
Mhm.
he does that, that's fantastic. So
Yep.
Yeah, building off of that, from what I've seen so far, like you said, I loved the Leshy, just the creation of that really real, grounded creature, but then also the creature that ended up destroying the Leshy, not Eskel, but the
mhm,
Leshy itself, that like
mhm.
centipede looking
Hmm.
Yeah,
horned something that they're
yeah,
like, I don't even know. That was awesome.
it was.
It really felt like they took the time to like build a full, complete, creature that had weight, that moved in like a real sense. Like, when it's chasing Siri and it's like climbing around like a centipede would, it just felt like somebody super dedicated to their craft, sat around and watched a centipede and how it moved, how like the weight of its legs would go, and then made it giant and put it on the screen.
Right.
So I loved like both the creature effects, like those kinds of things, but then also like the magical effects. Some of my favorite things were early on in the season, like the mind magic that Tisea was doing, where she just like delves into
Mm.
somebody's head and then gets to like watch through. Some of that was just like so visceral. It just felt like I was also in that body watching these like scenes play out and moving my own limbs, in this battle of Sodden that was, being replayed. So stuff like that was just like both ends of the spectrum. Somebody was, giving it 100% at work.
Yeah.
Yep. I also like in the first episode how we, so like you say, they don't shy away from the monsters, but we also use it to, uh, like showcase a lesson. We're
Hmm.
learning about monsters. We get some depth there. They're not all just like purely evil.
Yep.
Siri obviously has empathy, and we learn like how that works out. It's like, well, yes, that's true, and it's kind of sad, but she also slaughtered a village full of people.
Hmm.
So it's and getting to know the guy that's taking them in, but then finds out, well, he was a rapist. So it's like
Yeah.
it is a real gray, um, delicate adult situation, that I think is good added experience for Siri. And then they, made it emotional right away. So we
Hmm.
used monsters to progress the story, to develop character, and to make something emotional. So I thought
It
it was a
also
well done episode.
it calls back to season one when Geralt was talking to um, Stegobor. Is that how I
Hmm.
pronounce the name? When he's talking about lesser evil, greater evil, they're variations of evil, but if I have to choose, I'm just not going to choose at all. Right?
Hmm.
He sees things. He says he sees things in more of a black and white nature when it comes to the monster hunting thing. And so then you've got Sirius sitting there questioning the way that he sees things, right? So you're seeing a little bit of Geralt development as well, or understanding,
Hmm.
because kind of does take a back seat to Ciri and to Yennefer, respectively, in the seasons,
Hmm.
or flip that around.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
yeah, but you know, he says he sees things that way and that they are lesser evil or greater evil is still evil. And then here, Siri is questioning that, and then boom, yep, I'm a rapist. It's like,
Hmm.
see, you know,
Yep.
Yeah.
is being a rapist a greater evil or a lesser evil? Does it really matter? No, because at the end of the day, it's still bad.
Right. Right.
But yeah, there is that question of like how much gray area, are you willing to forgive until you get to that point where you're like, okay, I'm out. Like I gave you so many chances, like Siri does. She gives him so many chances, and Geralt kind of gives him some chances. And they're maybe willing to be like, I know you were so in love, like, ugh, you like willingly overlooked these slaughters, but it's complicated when it comes to matters of the heart. And then suddenly it was like, yep, I'm a rapist too. Okay. Like,
Mhm.
there's only so many times that we can, give you that gray area until it becomes, you know, we have to
Yeah.
do something.
Yeah, and it's fun because a lot of times the characters that say, I'm really not a good person, they want to draw people in that way. Oh, they're kind of self-hating or whatever.
Mhm.
But they actually are gonna turn around and be heroic or something like that. And it's like, no, it's not that. I really am. You should really shouldn't like me. But then it's the complexity of, well, he does feel remorse.
Mhm.
There is remorse there. So again, it's
Yeah.
not a pure evil, good and bad kind of thing. So I just thought it
Well,
was good.
it's fun because I think Geralt gives off those vibes too of like, I'm like such a hard person and I don't have like, soft fuzzy feelings and like don't like me and, but
Yep.
then that draws people in like,
Yeah.
in our first season that role is really filled by Jaskier, Dandelion, kind of like inserting himself and he's sort of like a little brother type, or some variation on that kind of relationship with Geralt. And then this season it's Ciri who's kind of, like worming her way in and kind of thawing the ice, so to speak. Um, and even though he's putting off those, like, I want to protect you, but don't get too close. She's still like, nah, it's all right. I'm still drawn in anyway.
Hmm.
That's human nature too. I mean, the more someone plays aloof, right, the more you want to like you want to be a part of
Absolutely.
that world then because
Mm-hmm.
it, if you don't want to accept me, I want to know what that is and I want to change it or I
Right.
want to break through. There's just something
Right.
natural about us wanting to do that.
Right. I want to be in the inner circle. Like, if you're making it so hard, it must be worth it to like
Right.
really, fight my way in and be part of this like cherished inner circle that you would have.
Um, episode 2.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so this one we start, if I'm remembering right, we start getting into the kind of three ladies sort of come together. These three sorceresses. We're getting
Yes.
now Yennefer and Fringilla being captives, and kind of coming to, in Francesca's view, maybe part of a greater, um, like I don't know, role in history or something faithful.
Design. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
some sort of intelligent design about to happen here, that they all come together, and this is where we kind of everybody gets into trouble because
Mm-hmm.
they all want something different. And I'll have to say to start, Fringilla. Generally, I like her performance. She's definitely one of the ones that also looks very different than from the game, but
Mm-hmm.
I give it more passes because she's. I don't think Fringilla is anyone's fan favorite. I had to say, but otherwise, I think she's an interesting character. And what'd you guys think about this going into this kind of crazy vision they had? Right? Was that in this episode?
Yeah. Yeah. We meet the
And
elves and
hmm
they, they're keeping our two mages captive. Um, for some reason they're supposed to be maybe useful and then they kind of maybe end up actually being useful um with this whole like dreams that they're all having of these hooded figures.
hmm
um yeah, I do have to say I think this is very interesting in this episode particularly that these three women are having um visions of a hooded figure that kind of represents what they call the deathless mother, which is also a three figured woman. um and I think this is appearing a lot in TV shows right now, this sort of like um mother maiden crone, like um three women, three-sided woman um model after like Hecate, goddess of the moon,
Right.
who is like the three-figured goddess. I feel like it's just sort of like everywhere right now and I'm really kind of
Interesting.
into it.
Okay.
I've watched several shows recently. I watched The Chilling Adventures of Sabrina, which was all about Hecate. A Discovery of Witches also had this mythology in it and pretty front and center. And now, like, to have this kind of same figure who is appearing to each of the women as different, like, kind of evolutions of a woman. I just sort of felt like this is like some really cool through line mythology right now that I'm just digging.
Didn't they do a sequel to Hocus Pocus?
They did. I don't know
Or
that like
are
it
three
actually
more
got released.
witches?
There, I don't think it actually got released. I think it's supposed to be this year that
Okay.
that
Okay. All
the
right. Well,
sequel is being
there's
released.
three more witches.
But
So
yeah.
yeah.
I'm just saying, like this sort of thing is
Yeah.
like everywhere right now, and I'm just like digging that it's in Witcher also.
Cool. Nice. Yeah, Mike, what do you think of these characters? What do you think of Francesca and the elves and the plight of the elves and how that it's all going for him?
I'll be honest, at this point I don't know why I care.
Okay.
Because we haven't gotten enough of them yet up to this point. Like in season one, they were kind of this. They were still more of a story and a myth almost. You know, we had like one interaction with the former king of the elves, and I think that they're getting to why it's going to be very important without going too much into later parts of the season. They're definitely a vastly important part of the story, but they're this sect, I guess, of elves that we're being shown are not the ones that are vastly important to the history of The Witcher.
Mm,
They are portion. They're part of it. They're descendants of it. And so,
mhm.
to me, I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm
Okay.
not buying into the
Yeah.
characters yet. There's not a lot of weight on them for me. I'm
Mhm.
more interested and invested in some of the others.
Okay.
Yeah, it's an abrupt intro for sure. Like you said in season 1, there's mentions of the elves and there's mentions of like the prejudice that people have against the elves, and obviously we see that immediately in season 2 with like Stregobor being like elves are untrustworthy. They're aligning
Yeah.
themselves with, it's this whole like huge deal. It's like a through line obviously in what I've seen of the second season so far, this like prejudice. But yeah, they just this particular group appears out of nowhere and suddenly are very integral to the storyline, and it's like, but I don't know you.
Hmm.
Yeah, and it's kind of a bummer because I mean they spend a lot of time showing how Nilfgaardians are treating elves so poorly, and like I get that, and maybe you're trying to get me on the sympathy train, which I can definitely get to.
Mhm.
But tell me more about outside of just seeing the atrocities of cutting their ears off and things like that. Like outside of just seeing that, tell me why I need to care about them and not just feel sympathy towards them.
Mhm.
Um, I want to
Yeah,
see a
what
little bit
else is
more.
there?
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, I think it's interesting how, I mean, the thing you learn in Witcher is you can trust basically nobody. So it's definitely not an Elvish thing. Um,
Hmm.
but yeah, I was just ultimately happy with the casting for Francesca. And it's
Mhm.
very interesting how they're trying to be a part of this in there, how they're trying to, how Fringilla's desperately trying to regain face,
Hmm.
Mhm.
recover. Like what do I do? I got to come back to the emperor somehow here. What am I going to bring? Well, if I
Mhm.
bring reinforcements, that's something for sure. So I thought
Yeah.
that's an interesting way for her to come out of this.
Mhm.
And then Yen kind of being just stuck there in the middle, kind of going along with it. So
Mhm.
but we can
We
move a little
do
bit. Oh, go ahead.
I was just gonna say before we move on from episode 2, I do have to say, like, this episode dropped like 2 pretty huge bombs that I didn't feel there was a lot of lead up for. Like,
Oh
one,
yeah, I wasn't going to
Francesca's
move on from
pregnant.
this. That
Oh, okay.
because I got problems.
Okay,
Okay,
well, sticking on the elves, Francesca's
okay,
pregnant. Like, what?
yeah,
And they don't
yeah,
um,
explain how at
no.
all. Is this immaculate? Like,
Yeah, that really bothered me. Not the fact that she's pregnant or even that it was gonna be like a reveal that she was pregnant, but there was just like, she's pregnant and then like total back away from the subject.
yeah. Well, it's kind of
Okay.
asking your three-headed figure, asking your hooded figure that's promising you something. It's like, what do you want? This is what I want. I want this for the elves. I want this for me, and you get it. And
Yeah. I
but something like that is always going to cost, that's so it's always that's the way
Well,
magic
I
works
just
and
I
stuff.
just feel like her interaction was so vague. Like she just was more like, I want a future for the elves and I want a home and I want us to prosper and I want, there was just so many
Sure.
things.
It
If she would
Why
have
did it
said like,
manifest that way?
yeah, yeah, if she would have said like, I would like to birth a true blood elf and like this is good, you know what I mean? I needed it to be a little bit more because there
More
wasn't enough,
specific.
like, yeah. She didn't, I mean, obviously she didn't need to say that because, who likes a TV show that, just like lays everything out for you. But there needed to be a little bit more indication of, you know, this is how I want to manifest what I want for the elves, my people.
and
Okay.
I guess the other part that you kind of have to just be okay with that they haven't really explained with is why has there not been a pure blood elf born in
Yep.
so long? Because if she can birth a pure blood elf, right? is she pureblood herself? Are you telling me she's
Right.
the only one? Because then Francesca seems even more important than what they had described. But it seems that there's other, not necessarily elder blood, but pure blood elves. So
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why it's been so long since one's been born. Like,
Mm-hmm.
have they gone sterile for some reason? I just don't know. So
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Yeah, it's definitely something you're just supposed to take at this point and question, and yeah, maybe they need some answers for that.
Mm-hmm.
Um okay, I'm going to rant for a little bit here before we move to the next episode.
Are we going to Kaer Morhen
We're
for this
going to
rant?
Kaer We're going to
Okay.
Kaer We're
Just
talking
want to
about
make
the
sure I'm like,
Witchers. Yeah.
into what I think you're gonna rant about.
So they showed us a bunch of Witchers, and
Mm-hmm.
firstly, I'm like, okay, that's interesting. I didn't know there were that many Witchers presently.
Yeah.
That was a thing that um, there are other Witchers schools, and there's other Witchers in the world.
Mm-hmm.
But as far as Kaer I don't. Yeah, I was surprised at how many there were there. We were introduced to some important ones. Eskel in particular, and I thought, all right, I can see it. All right,
Mm-hmm.
and then Lambert looks nothing like what he's supposed to. And then, as you mentioned earlier, Vesemir is pretty spot on. That's great. That's well done.
Mm-hmm.
My complaint is, I mean, spoilers. Eskel dying.
Okay. I'm just gonna say I'm so glad your complaint is with Eskel because I actually love the guy who plays Lambert. Like I know
Okay,
he looks
this is
nothing. I know he looks
yes.
nothing like it, but like I'm just sort of okay with like them just like taking like a total break and this guy's personality, like I'm into it.
Just
Like I
slick
feel
his
like he
hair back and
embodies.
dye it dark.
I
That's
mean,
all
okay,
I'm
maybe.
asking. Again, this is not rocket science. Like,
So
why do you purposely have to deviate? Now, maybe this character specifically in the books is like, he's kind of, strawberry haired, frizzy haired guy. All right. Okay. He's got big hair. Okay. I don't know that. That could be the case.
sure.
Again, I'm talking because clearly they've taken a lot of influence from the games for
Hmm.
important characters, for fan favorites and whatever, they've taken stuff from the games. But
Yeah.
yes,
I
ultimately
just
the
feel like his
personality is there. I think
personality is
it's,
like
yeah.
spot on.
Yep.
He sort of, and I don't know if they were going for this at all and if this was like a thought in their minds. He sort of reminds me of Game of Thrones Tormund Giantsbane
Yeah.
with like the strawberry blonde, you know what I mean?
yeah.
Like
Oh
so
yeah.
that so if like that's what's going on, like I'm actually here for that. Like I kind of love it. I love the way he looks. I love the way his personality is and he's just like a fun guy. I
I
also
mean, he's
I
supposed to be
don't
kind of
know
an
about
asshole, but yeah.
I don't well, he is kind of an asshole. I mean, he's
Yeah.
not like, super nice to Siri or
No.
like, like, "Oh, it's okay. Like, let me help you through your training." He's kind of like, "Let me watch you get beaten up." Like,
Yeah.
yeah, this is a good, I could sit down with some meat and whatever our
Yeah.
version of popcorn is and just like watch this all day. Um, so yeah, so I quite like him, but I don't know what his importance is, obviously, storyline wise, if that's like, you know,
Sure.
gonna be an issue later on down the road.
Yep.
But
Well,
yeah, to get
yeah.
to Eskel, your
Eskel,
problems.
okay. So they killed him. I mean, Eskel is
What?
of all the
John?
Witchers
Spoilers?
involved, there's a few mainstays that are kind of important. They play a role in series upbringing, and Eskel is one of them. And so it was very odd, and I was very shocked, and I
Mhm.
definitely had a fit of rage when I saw it. I was like, "No way you're doing this! No way you're doing this! You have a room full of Witchers, and you take Eskel and kill him? What do you do? What is happening here?" And so I looked like, okay, did this happen in the books? Is this a thing that happens in the
Hmm,
books and they just change? No, it is not a thing that happens in the books. They
okay.
purposely did this. The showrunner talked about it, and I don't buy the excuses. She wanted to say that there's they wanted more, they wanted a death, someone meaningful for greater impact, and for that to be a reason that Geralt needs to push to train Ciri. And I'm calling BS on that because, firstly, from the first episode alone, you have enough reason to need you to be
Mhm.
able to defend yourself. She got in a lot. You got a lot of trouble there. She's in major danger. You're around all kinds of major danger. Okay, she's
I was just about to
uh
do that. Thank you.
um, but you need to know other motivation for this character to need to be able to defend herself, especially when you're going to see how willing she is because she's has a figure now that Mousak is gone to look up to, this like
Mhm.
father figure that she begins to really respect and wants to be like. So um, I just don't buy it, and I don't understand why they did this. It's a good character they could have had around. In this way,
Mhm.
then our only look at Eskel is not an accurate, a reasonable portrayal of Eskel,
Mhm.
because Eskel's a nice guy. Like he's
Yeah.
he's a nice dude, and here he had attitude. Because I was like, okay, well he's injured, and clearly this is affecting him, and he's like messed up, and
Yeah.
okay, all this stuff, and they're gonna
Mhm.
fix it. They're gonna deal with it. And instead, we never get to see it. And
So
Yeah.
yeah,
I had read an article, and I think it was the showrunner commenting on it, and I wish I had saved the article before I realized that we were going to be talking about it too much. But uh, that that character was written. These events were written into the show not as Eskel. They were just written in as a Witcher does this, and then they literally just put the name on the character in the events that they had written in, and then you can speculate as to why you would just throw a beloved name onto a character. So this was not written as Eskel, which is why he seems so off,
hmm
right? Which is
Mhm.
and why they were willing to toss it out. But like, I guess the showrunner just decided, yep, we're going to use this character name that people know. And
Mhm.
to me, the only explanation you can do that for then is shock value. But then
yep,
you
Mhm.
question,
exactly.
okay, so what for? Because me, as a
Right.
person who hasn't played the games, I don't know Eskel from any other Witcher, so I don't
Mhm.
care. So it doesn't
Mhm.
Yeah,
carry any weight for me. So
Yes.
right.
literally, all you've done is tick off the people who do care.
Yep.
Yep.
I 100% agree with your statement. Like, as someone coming in brand new, I was just introduced to Eskel, so I don't really have any attachment to him other than like, ooh, he's a named character, like maybe he's going to be important, but I
Yeah.
don't have any of that actual build up to care about him. Um and you've just now taken him away. And I don't think that there's much emotional impact in that. I don't think there's enough of us seeing that relationship between him and Geralt for us to understand that like his death is the impetus for him to start training Ciri. I did write it down in my notes, like obviously I can see that he is affected and now he's like going to do this with her because of this death. But as an audience member, like I don't actually have emotional investment in that. I can logically see the train of thought, but I'm not there with it emotionally. So I could have it really could have been any other Witcher at this point. It really just could have been some rando that came home. I still have no attachment to. You don't At this point you don't even need to give him a name if you don't want to.
Hey,
Um and it would have had about the same impact for me, the viewer. And it
Yep.
would have had the same impact, I think, for maybe not Geralt. But you could have like stretched that and just said like, he saw a fellow Witcher go down
They're all
and
brothers.
and yeah, exactly, and wanted to then train Ciri to defend herself. But I think it would have had the same impact for Vesemir, because his whole thing this season, even though we're just getting introduced to him, I can already tell that like his thing is he's a father figure to all these Witchers. He wants to make more. He's lost so many. He feels like those losses, the numbers are dwindling, like, you know, and that's his pain. And he sort of like wants to replace them, not directly, but like indirectly by making more of this brotherhood.
Yep.
So you could have lost any Witcher, and that would have had the same impact for every character.
Yeah, you guys bring up good points of that. Cause I didn't think of that. Having known this character for so long, it's like, yeah, of course. If you didn't know, like, which one would it matter? Pick a
Yeah,
nameless one.
it doesn't. It
Yep.
doesn't. Truly. The way the show dealt with it. Now, this would have been later in the season. We would have like seen Eskel. Maybe he like struggled with this wound that the Leshy gave him, and like, things are happening with his character. Later on down the road, absolutely, this scene would have been like, ugh, like gut-wrenching perhaps as we see his relationship build up. But he's there and he's gone.
Well, and then why? Because I thought, okay, this is how he's going to get extra scarred. The character Eskel is supposed to be,
Yeah.
Yeah.
very, very messed
Mhm.
up spaces. So they're going to have to get this out of him, and he's gonna
Right.
feel the physical consequence from it. So
Right.
I was on board until there, and especially then they killed him, and it was for nothing because he didn't actually kill the source. The
Right.
thing that he was attacked him that then infected him was still alive. So he really, was like meaningless.
Well, well, it wasn't completely meaningless because he brought back the arm that then Geralt and Triss were able
Yeah.
to determine that like somebody was making these creatures and it's like from the same source. But again, we didn't really need like Eskel to be the one to do
Yep.
that. Do you know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like
Yep.
again, any other Witcher would have been like a great sacrifice in his place to advance the storyline, and we would have just been like, okay, bye.
Yep.
And
So
this
it
is
was
a
a really
minor
bummer for me. Yeah.
No, go ahead, Mike.
minor tangent, and then I want to hear more about John being angry about this because that just gives me big kicks. I love it. It's my favorite thing. So far, from season 1 and it's season 2 up to this point, all you have shown me about Witchers is that they suck at being Witchers. Like,
Mm,
these are supposed to be, from my understanding, literally bred and made to fight off these monsters successfully to a greater degree than anyone else. We saw a Witcher get lost to the Stiga in the first
mm,
season, right? We heard about other Witchers being killed. Now we've seen Eskel, who was supposed to be a great one, killed, in a sense. And they
Mhm.
talk about, Vesemir makes a line like, fire to the heart, and it took you 60 minutes to come to that conclusion. Like, why do these guys come off as amateurs? Why do they
yeah.
keep
Yeah.
doing that? I
Yeah.
asked my brother-in-law, I was like, so this must mean that Geralt is like the greatest of the Witchers ever, right? He's like,
Right.
no, not really.
Yeah. No.
Like,
Yeah, even, I adore like the character of Lambert, and I loved his like hilarious story about like, oh, I was supposed to like go fight off a monster and instead it was like the stable hand sneaking in to have some time with the wife, and I was just like, that is a hilarious story, but like when I think about the stories that Geralt could tell of his year, like none of them were just so mundane like that. You know what I mean? Like Geralt like traveled with, a party to hunt dragons, saw a golden dragon, like, there was just so many like different like crazy things that happened to him, and like I don't know if this is just like a warm up and you've got better stories, but it doesn't seem like anybody else is doing these epic things.
right.
And I kind of wanted to like hear more about that because I mean as much fun as I think it is that Geralt like is truly something special, I do want his like Witcher brothers to be a little bit more.
It's 100%, 150%. It's one of the biggest issues with the show. In the Witcher 2 game, there's a Witcher named Letho, and he is an equal to Geralt for sure. Like
Mhm.
they're going at it. And the difference with Geralt is that the rumor is that Witchers, they pull out of them all ability to have emotion. So they're always
Mhm.
thinking, people meet him in the world and they think they're these cold-hearted, can feel nothing things, and that are just out there for money, and they take any job and kill monsters and clean up your business and whatever. And that's a lot of Witchers, and they're really good at it. The difference with Geralt is he can't help himself but get involved with the political affairs of the nation.
Okay.
He's getting mixed up with sorceresses who are like historically very dishonest and have their own like agendas, and then
Mhm.
he's dealing with kings and queens and whatever, And Vesemir and others are like, just stay out of it. Stay out of it. Like we protect people from monsters. We take bounties on monsters and evil things.
Mhm.
Don't get involved in like, these human affairs. And he can't help it. That's the difference. It's not that Geralt's the ultimate super witcher. And so Geralt does some pretty cool things, but could be cooler.
Mhm.
I still
Yeah.
think. And yeah, we need to see these other people be awesome, and we're
Right.
not. We're really
Yeah.
not. And so Eskel would have been a great opportunity to have someone that they could have done something together and seen. It's like, again, okay, some of these other Witchers, maybe they're newer, they're younger, they're not as good or whatever,
Mhm.
But some of these core Witchers, no, they need to step it up. So
Well, Lambert is supposed to be one of the last ones that was made, right? Most recent.
yeah, he's younger, I
So,
think. Yep. Mhm.
Yeah. Before they lost the ability to create more. He was one of the
Yeah,
last
the
ones.
attack there and stuff.
Yeah. So to your point,
Mhm.
maybe that's why he's dealing with farmhands or whatever that are sneaking in. But also, we're talking about centuries, right? These guys
they
live
live a
for
long time.
centuries,
Mhm.
and so even the youngest one should be very well versed at this point.
Right. Like we should have some really cool story. Again, we don't need to be like hunting golden dragons and like, having those kinds of like crazy encounters, or at least that's the way, first season made it seem that this was just like so unbelievable.
Mhm.
But we should be having something cool. Like
I mean,
that was the only story we heard from the Witchers, you know what I mean? Except for Eskel's like very anticlimactic battle with Aleshi where Vesemir was like, boy, like,
Yeah.
this is like back to basics and you definitely, screwed it up. So,
Well, one guy did get a chunk of his ass taken out by a werewolf. Sorry.
but we brush right
Nothing.
past that. Like,
Yeah.
that story. Somebody tell me about a werewolf ass biting. Like,
well, even Geralt, I think, is underutilized. They do cool sword fights with him, but that's not always the best thing for monsters. And it's like
Mhm.
they're underutilized. They're not showing a lot of his abilities in the game.
Yep.
I remember in the second game, you need to use them a lot. You can, one of his curses he throws at someone makes it so it attacks their teammates. So you could be fighting Nilfgaardian people, throw a curse at them, and they fight each other to the
Mhm.
death, or
That'd be
a
cool.
thing where you do it and it locks them in place. The creature can move into the thing and then they're stuck in a spot. They kind of freeze. Like there's different powers that are involved here they could
Mhm.
use. Let me see them coat their blades with oil. They're doing that all the time. Crossbow. Use your
Yeah.
cross. Like no one has a bow in this thing. Where are your bows? Like I just the someone's not using their imagination here.
Yeah.
That's where
I
I think,
agree.
so.
Yeah, I mean, we get like the very brief, like, Geralt sets his sword on fire to deal with the Leshy, or like,
Mhm.
makes
was
it
cool.
molten hot.
Yep.
Great, awesome. I'd love to see more of something like that. Or, very early on in the first episode of the second season, I forgetting the creature's name, um, that the woman that's living with his cursed friend
Oh yeah,
who
the
attacks all the
Broxy or whatever. Yeah, the
yeah,
Broxia.
thank you. Yeah, yep. So he does like hit her with some magic to like, get her off of him and get her away from Ciri. And like there's very, very brief flashes of other things that Geralt can do, but we don't really get into them. They're not like a regular part of his, fighting repertoire. It really is, like you said, just the sword.
Mhm.
So it'd be cool to like explore more of that.
And where are
I
the
will.
other Witchers doing this stuff?
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Who else has got something else unique, or
Mhm.
different that they've got going on for their fighting style?
Season 2 does show him using a few more of his powers. Like if you look back into season
Yes.
1, right? Season 1 is
Yep.
basically all force push, and
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
what I'm gonna call it because that's what it is to me.
Yep.
There's
Sure.
every single thing. Ard, thank you. Right away, then this time in season 1, right? We see him calming the horse. Is that the Axie? Is that Axie? We
Yeah,
see
I
him
think
calming
so.
the horse right away.
Yeah.
And then, we see him light up his sword. And then there's a few other ones that come throughout
The
as well.
fire, like you say, yep.
Yep.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I mean, so I was happy to see that a little bit. And I was thinking
Yes.
maybe that's coming with budget. right? Maybe that's
Yep.
why
Sure,
we're
Right.
able
sure.
to do it.
Yep.
But yeah, I would like to hear about the other Witchers for sure.
Yep.
Mhm.
So we might as well get into episode 3 and 4 then.
Mhm.
3, what's happening in 3, Andrea?
Yeah, so this is, kind of series big training moment. Not only is she like going at it hard, she's like practicing her sword skills against a straw man, but then, the other witchers are kind of giving her a hard time and being like, well, if you really want to train and you really want to be, one of us, you're going to run this sort of like gauntlet that we have built. And Siri just
Mhm.
kind of she on the one hand gets her ass kicked like up and down this training field, and on the other like starts to win the witchers over because she's clearly so determined and she's not giving up and she's not going home or running to Geralt crying or whatever. She's just like picking herself up and being like, I'm gonna do it again. um
Yep.
so yeah, so there's definitely some fun moments for her interacting with the other witchers and us seeing them be like, yeah, you're an asshole, but all right, like, you can't help yourself, you are a little bit rooting for her, which is great. And
Yep.
then obviously, of course, uh, Triss is here at Kaer um, for multiple reasons, as Geralt says, like, to figure out what's going on with Ciri, help train her, kind of help him figure out what's going on with these monsters that are coming as well.
Yep. Yeah, we should talk about Siri a little bit. I think that, in my opinion, they did a great job with the cast on this, and I think she's putting in a good performance. I'm buying what's happening here with
Mhm.
her. What do you think, Mike? What do you think of Siri?
I like her. Like I like the actress a lot and her
Mhm.
portrayal of it. I like that she, Lambert and the rest of the Witchers kept making references to the fact that she's a princess, and
Mhm.
um, she's always had this underlying thing of hiding the fact that she is a princess in some degree, like with knuckle bones and whatnot. And this is just a really cool way for her to show that she is not merely a princess. Um, and that I kind of wonder a little bit where that determination comes from. This is
Sure.
the first time we're really seeing it, which is fine. You got to see it for the first time somewhere. But certainly in the way that she was raised, that level of determination would never have had to manifest itself by any
Mhm.
means. And I mean,
Mhm.
she took, like you said, she took a huge amount of beatings. She was
Mhm.
coughing up blood right by the end of it.
Yep.
I mean,
Mhm.
that is that is a special kind of determination that has to come through. But I still think
Mhm.
it was cool.
Hmm.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think it's probably leading into Siri really trying to find her place and how she belongs, and if she feels like she can belong here, she's determined to make that so, because she's looking up to Geralt and no one else is accepting her. Maybe this
Mhm.
is a like you say, it's a two-part way to try to gain the respect of the place that she's in now. And it's kind of like you said, your goals on something of like, she's never exactly satisfied with, well, I'm the princess and I'm gonna marry someone and then like that's not so. It's something more to shoot for, or something very different in this case.
Mhm.
um
That's a good
that
point.
I can see her
She did
pushing.
say in season one too that um, she wanted to know about the Nilfgaardians coming towards Sintra, and they were trying to
Mhm.
hide it from her. Basically,
Yep.
her grandmother was, and then she's like, Siri said, by the time you were my age, you had already won your first battle. So there might
Right.
be. She wants to live up to her grandmother a little bit.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, she does repeatedly reference like her grandmother in different moments.
That's true. Yeah.
My grandmother, was a fierce warrior. Like later on in the season, she's like, my grandmother wore dresses and she fought battles. Like,
Hmm.
she clearly holds her in like very high esteem and is
Great
in
point.
some way, I think, consciously or unconsciously trying to live up to her legend.
Yep. Yep. Totally makes sense. um all right, and so obviously anything else from episode 3, but then episode 4, we're getting into some more of the politics. We're seeing things going around. Andrew, you'd mentioned in here in your comments about Stregobor being like very
Oh my God.
jump to things,
He is the worst in this episode. Like, he just like takes such large leaps and people follow him, and I'm just like, this is like the least convincing thing I've ever heard. So
See, but the
he
people are going along with it, it seems. And so that was
I
my
that's
frustration is you need
that's
someone else to be able to counter to this guy, someone that can stand up and speak because, to say, like,
right.
put your foot down, say something, like,
Right, she only tries to a point, and then
yeah,
she just like lets it happen, and I'm super frustrated about it. Because yeah, he just like gets these like really big opportunities to speak to a bunch of people and just say some like very, gaslighting, fear-mongering
yeah.
crap that doesn't even like logically follow itself. It's just like big, huge, like, what if this happens? Could this be? Like, you know what I mean? And there's no like, okay, I'm logically gonna like lay it out. Point A, point B, point C, point D. It's literally just like, did you see this one thing this one time?
The shock
Obviously it will
value.
yeah, it's just there's just such large like logical leaps that you have to make to follow his arguments and to just like buy into them that they just don't feel real, but somehow everybody's like, "Oh yeah, like great point." You know? He's like, "Let me conjure this like fire person
Yeah.
and be like,
It's
"Ooh,
a presentation.
fire."
Yeah, it's a
Yeah,
show.
it is all show, and it's just so hollow and empty that as an audience member, I was like, I mean, I get why this is happening and I get where they're going with this character, and he's going to obviously create problems for Yennefer because he's never liked her, but it just seems like such a big leap that the entire rest of the brotherhood is like totally yeah. So,
Well, yeah. Even Istred or whatever his name is, the mage, like he attempted
yeah.
to come in and correct some things, but then gave up right away.
Yeah, it was just so
It's
weak. It
like,
was just sort of
yeah,
like, "Oh, like it wouldn't happen." And then he's like, "But what if it did?" And he's like,
yeah,
you know,
yeah,
like you are completely cowed by an argument of like, what if it did? Like,
yeah.
it just, I don't know. So Stregobor was just like really getting on my nerves in this episode because it was like first he, like was creating this like elves are dangerous and terrible and everybody knows it. And it's like,
Hmm.
okay, I guess. And then he was like, and what if Yennefer came back from the dead because she's, evil and scary? And everybody's like, ooh. And then again, he's like, I created this fire thing. What if she's like this fire thing that happened a long time ago? Ooh. Like, it was just so much like fear mongering without any basis in fact that, yeah,
Yep.
I was quite tired of it by episode's end.
That's pretty consistent with his character, actually, though, because
Yeah.
his whole idea with destroying Renfrey,
Yeah.
right off
Yep.
the bat, was based
Yep.
off of this silly hunch, and he's kind of painted to be this guy who claims that he's doing autopsies, but he's just confirmation biasing himself,
Right.
basically.
So like who let him have any
Yeah.
say ever? Like whoever was like, this guy knows what he's talking about, he should be on the brook. Like where did he get that in the first place? Because he clearly sucks.
Yeah.
Yep. All right. Well, we should talk about episode 4. It's
Indeed.
the last one here. So we are introduced to Dijkstra, which is an awesome character and a great cast. I thought I'm excited to see where they go with Dijkstra. He's in the Uncharted games, just a voice, but that's where I
You
know
know what
him
else
from.
he's in?
What else is he in?
It's something we love and we've talked about on the show a lot. It's animated, but it's not anime, as you very rightly pointed out to me.
Oh,
Also on
Castlevania, probably,
Netflix.
right?
Yes. He's
Okay,
Dracula.
yeah,
He's
okay,
an Outlander too. This guy is getting
He is.
around.
He
nice.
is. Yep. I remember him from there too. Yeah. His like facial hair is just, I think like his whole image. It's beautiful and
Yeah,
wonderful and so iconic.
it's good. It's good. So as soon as I saw him, I always love seeing something I'm familiar with because the world's big. There's a lot that I don't know for sure. Um, this episode, we're seeing him get involved. We see he's behind some talking to some different rulers and stuff like that. We get some
Also making
more.
a play for Sintra,
Yep.
which, I'm assuming is going to be a thing later in the season or other seasons.
Right. Yep. Andrea, you mentioned no mention of Yennefer. Come on,
Yes.
Chris. This is
Yeah.
consistent. This is a good
So,
point. Yep.
clearly there's like a love triangle here or an attempted one.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, not cool, man. Like I really like Triss. And you know what? If Yennefer was gone, like, go for it. I mean, if she's actually like dead and gone, like, there's nothing from stopping you from taking your shot. He could
Mhm.
still reject you. Or if you do tell him that she's alive, which she doesn't, but if you do and he has, no reaction or like not the reaction you expect, or like he's like, I've let her go or whatever, again, shoot your shot, girl. But you can't keep something like she's alive and in the world from him and shoot your shot. I'm not okay with that. That's breaking some major girl code.
And then we have the whole like, okay, Ciri has elder blood. We'd mentioned that before.
Yes.
So we've got people after her. We've got the flame guy. He's the one trick pony. I've got a flame
Mhm.
finger, acting and stuff. And so this is, I'm trying to read your notes so I don't go past where Ciri is where towards the end of this episode.
So they've just defeated the creepy centipede thing, that comes after her after killing the Leshy, um, and then weirdly like pauses before, like, he's got her cornered, and there's this
Right?
whole like
Yep.
big moment, and I didn't know if that was like significant or not, because then later on we find out that the centipede has the same compound in it that the Leshy had, and it's tied to this monolith that Ciri claims she might have accidentally toppled. And I'm not sure if this is like a dream thing or if it happened when she like had that scream on the plains where like everything around her like toppled over and possibly died. So
Okay.
yeah, there's sort of a little bit of confusion there for me,
Sure.
what exactly that's about.
Okay. Okay.
Oh,
So,
Alan's telling me this centipede monster is a myriapod, which is a sweet name.
It is cool.
I like that, and totally conveys what it is.
nice.
Myriapod. I dig it.
Well, I'm asking because some of your notes seem to suggest stuff that's a little later than that.
Well, yeah,
Um,
so
and
the compound that they find is kind of right before then they also find out that Ciri has elder blood. And that's sort of where that storyline for me, has stopped at episode 4. And then of course, right after that we switch back to Yennefer and the Knight of Nilfgaard, Cahir, who are trying to escape and get to Sintra. And possibly like for Cahir, he's gonna like maybe put Fringilla back in her place because she's kind of, you know, grown a little big for her britches and is sort of like taking over, and he's sort of like weirded out that she's calling all the shots right now for Nilfgaard.
okay.
Um, but yeah, kind of unclear about that.
Yeah, it's interesting how that's gonna. There's some cool stuff coming up with that. Um, I don't want to verge into stepping into the next episode. Because yeah, there are definitely some neat things that happen with that yet, and it's hard for me to bite my tongue, I guess. So,
Yeah.
but
I'm sorry,
so
I'm holding you guys
no,
back.
it's all right. Based on first half of season 2, we'll go to Andrea because that's you've seen. What do you
Mhm.
think? I mean, is it living up to your expectation?
Yeah, so I think that certain elements are, like you've said, I think some of the technical aspects have improved on the show. A lot of the effects have, everything feels still within like a grounded real world. Characters are for the most part very compelling. Mike, I do agree with you that like Yennefer's losing a lot of direction for me, and I'm very frustrated with her. Um, so I'm a little disappointed that perhaps that doesn't get corrected in the second half of the season. Um, but overall, I'm still very much like on the edge of my seat, wondering what's happening next with like the overarching storylines. I'm excited to get to the second half of the season. Um, so I would say I would give it overall a thumbs up. I'm happy with the season. Not quite as happy as season 1 though.
Okay. All right. Well, I think we'll leave it there then, unless anyone has anything else to say. Um, that's been Popcast on the Rocks, episode 89, and our talk of Witcher season 1 and the first half of season 2 from Netflix. You should follow us here on Twitch or YouTube. I'm throwing in Instagram now. I'm like watching too many people that have Instagram. Like we gotta get on there, I guess. Twitter, Facebook, whatever. Follow us on your favorite podcast directory of choice. Subscribe there. Please leave reviews. That helps people find us. Thank you to Killing the Flower for our theme song. You can find them on Instagram, YouTube, and Spotify. So go ahead and check them a look. And otherwise, that'll be it. Mike, is there anything you'd like to promote or anything like that before? That's what
You
people on
can
podcasts do. Like, what do you? Where should you find
if you want to
you?
be thoroughly bored by Miata Boy, Track Boy wannabe stuff, and see a car progression and just dumb things about that, I'm at Track Mouse on Instagram, and that's the only kind of social media I've got. So,
Okay, cool. All right.
yeah,
Excellent.
this has been really fun.
Well, great. Thanks for joining us. You're gonna have to come back for the latter half of the series here. And as always, of course, thank you, Andrea, for being here. And we'll see everybody next time.
Sounds good.
Cool.
Cheers, everybody.
Thanks a lot. Cheers.